And welcome to the Suicide Prevention Show every Wednesday, the first Wednesday of every month, right here on 1360 WLBK. Kind of missing in action some of my cohorts, Chuck Seabrass and Citizen Michael Barron Jeffries. Hopefully, will be joining us in a little bit. But always thrilled to have on the phone with me right now, Tamara Sutton. Tamara is an author, a wonderful person who unfortunately lost her son Demetrius to suicide. Wrote a wonderful book about it called My Gift of Life. And we have her on the phone right now. How are you doing there, Tamara?
I'm doing just great, Terry. I've missed you.
I know. It feels like it's been years since we've had a chance to talk with you.
Great to be back. Thank you.
Well, it's a wonderful having you on the air, and again, I always give you such kudos for taking your grief and turning it into such a positive thing. I'm on your website right now, the Tamara Sutton website, and people can go to tamarasutton.com and get to that website. And, that's the beautiful thing about the Internet, Tamara, is that we're allowed to share so much information. And, of course, you not only wrote a wonderful book about Demetrius, your son, but you blog as well, and then you're in the process of working on a new book, aren't you?
Yes, I am. That's true. And I always appreciate when people write to me through the website, and you can contact me that way. People ask questions. We have a dialogue that we do just, personally, and I do a lot of grief coaching with people. There's just so many out there that don't have anyone to talk to about it, and sometimes we need lengthy counseling, but many times we just need someone to hear us, and so that's something that I also do.
And you know what, Tamara, I've learned by talking to Chuck, I've lost, unfortunately, a couple of friends to suicide, and people always say, when are you going to get over it, as if you're going to reach a certain period in your life and you'll be over it, and that is not the case when it comes to suicide, is it not?
No, it's if you love this person, and we all do, to me, it is an indication of the depth of our love for them, that we continue to be affected by the loss of them. And I have this just 2 days ago, Demetrius, when he died, had a girlfriend that he was living with, and I have not really spoken to her more than maybe once or twice in 10 years since he died. And she went to my website, found it, went to the website, ordered my book. And so I noticed that she did. We started a dialogue again, and she wrote to my daughters and just chatted with them a little bit about Demetrius and about some of the things that he said about them, and how really funny he could be. He had a great sense of humor, and how brilliant, and how kind of awkward at times. And so I printed it off, and I gave it to each of them, and each of them just felt this so heartfelt, really sobbed, because it's been 10 years since he died, and they had the opportunity to think about what kind of relationship would they have with him now, and what kind of friends would they be, and what would they share in common, and what would their conversations be like. And what they do is, with that, they grieve once again in a very healthy way. They communicate with each other, they hold each other, they cried. We had long conversations about what that might be like, and both of them actually expressed their feelings or their thoughts in some way. Actually, Kara did some writing, and Allie did some painting, and so and that's how they chose to then express a little bit further. But it never stops. In every age that you are, every phase of life, every time there's a wedding, you wonder. I wonder. I would be a grandmother now. I would be, I would have gone to his wedding probably. And so that's what this is supposed to be about, though. It's the ongoing interaction with them as a result of them having lived in our lives, and now the loss of them. It doesn't stop. You're right.
Now, that's a very interesting point, though, you bring up, Tamara, because I know, I'm sure many people, and I'm thinking of the film It's a Wonderful Life, when he doesn't realize how many people he's touched in his life. And obviously, Demetrius, I don't think, could fathom how many people that he touched with his life. But you speak about these friends coming back and writing a letter to your daughters, and is that a good thing to do? And I'm guessing that it is, because it's not going to drudge up negative memories. It's going to bring up all the good stuff, isn't it?
It felt so wonderful. His girlfriend now is married to a young man who looks very much like Demetrius, and they have 2 little girls themselves. And so it was very touching for me to anticipate, what that would be like to be a grandmother now. And that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to kind of fantasize in our minds. But the other thing is that there are so many people out there, young people, who are contemplating ending their lives and feeling that they're not worthwhile, have no value, maybe just in the dark, maybe chemically imbalanced, maybe just needing someone to talk to and to be heard. And, I would say to them, you do make a difference. You are important in ways that you can't even fathom now. But had Demetrius just taken a deep breath, had just thrown the window open for, to let some fresh air in, or had just heard a particular thought that would cause him to stop for a moment, his life would be still going on, would probably be more full than he felt it was before. Our perspective changes. And when you're young, certainly, we all are so overwhelmed with choices to be made and with feeling at a loss, and we're supposed to know what we want to do with the rest of our lives, and, how do we meet these bills, and how do we manage all of this? And I would say to that, we all need to hold hands a little bit more closely and support each other and to listen to each other and to say those words to one another that we so often miss, and that is to say, you mean something to me. You made a difference in my life when you did such and such, when you came over and just, chatted with me for a bit, or when you shoveled my front lawn or sidewalk. I mean, when you express to someone else what's in your heart, it's very powerful, and we're more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. And so that small gesture that we might do for someone else, and those gestures that have been done for us, we need to talk about those and share with one another how really valuable we all are.
Oh, very well put, Tamara. And again, for instance, I know just a few months ago, and I haven't finished a letter, I started to write a letter to the mother of my buddy who committed suicide, and part of me didn't want to mail the letter because I don't want to, bring that grief back to her. But yet, it's a very positive letter. But
it's so powerful. It's so powerful. And she can take it in her own pace, but it's heartwarming to hear that someone else remembers him too. My life has changed very much in the last 10 years, and I've moved to a new city. I have new friends, different friends. I do different activities, and it's rare to find someone who knew Demetrius or that will speak to me about Demetrius. I have just a small handful of friends that will do that for me and with me, and so it is really heartwarming. Getting this letter from Lindsay, his girlfriend, was very, very powerful.
Now, was that an intentional move, Tamara, to move away from people that knew Demetrius, or is that just something that happened in your life, or how did that come about?
Well, one of the things I'm doing right now is writing my second book, and it's really based on the transitions that we're faced with every single day, small ones and large ones. And a very large transition came to me just because it's difficult to maintain the structure of the family when suicide occurs, and particularly the loss of a child. And I'm not saying it can't be done, because it absolutely can be done. It just takes extra work and a great deal of outside help, I think. Counseling is very important, but communication, within the family is really, really important. And that's something that I didn't know about 10 years ago. And I changed a great deal. The dynamics of the family changed a great deal. And so I just, for myself, felt it was important to honor the truth for me. And so I felt that it was important to divorce as, well, I know it's an odd, some people get there, some people don't, but I needed to divorce my current husband and move to a new city. And I'm glad that I did that. I mean, it was a really important thing for me to do at the time. And there are many, many who actually work it through, but you have to have an awareness that there's going to be a greater challenge than the loss itself, and that is to communicate in a different way, a more effective way.
1360 WLBK, DeKalb County's news and information station. We're visiting with Tamara Sutton, talking about her new book. Her old book, Demetrius, My Gift of Life, can be purchased at her website, tamarasutton.com. And I want to talk to you about that, Tamara, but you're a very brave woman, and I read in your blogs here as well. And I have to ask you about that without being too insensitive. I've heard of cases where a couple loses a child to suicide, and I don't want to say they blame each other, but the grief is almost too much for them to stay together.
You know, Joanne Woodward said, you can be a professional, you can have a marriage, you can have a career, but it's difficult to do all three things at one time. And it's true. It's difficult to have a marriage and family and all that we do within that. And then when there is the loss, it's exceedingly difficult to then carry on and hold that marriage together, because it has taken on new dynamics.
I can imagine so. And for folks to play catch up here, not only have you wrote this wonderful book about Demetrius, but you've created the website. As I said, you've had articles published. You've really, it's obviously you've changed your life in a dramatic way, but you're giving back so much, and it's just amazing to see that you've been able to do that and continue to give back, to the world in general.
Well, I think that's another important feature of this kind of a loss too, because our life has ebb and flow. What I was doing with my life before, not that it wasn't important, it was, but I felt that I could be more effective in other ways with what I had learned along the way. And that's one of the ways that I use the guilt that I have for having not been insightful with Demetrius, for having missed the mark, as I think. Now I would see it coming. I would ask the questions. I would, speak up and say to him with great courage, "Are you thinking of taking your life?" I would tell him how I feel about that. I would honor what he's thinking, and I would listen. And kids today have a very difficult time sharing what they're feeling inside. I think that that's a huge component of depression. We hear them, the professionals speak about a chemical imbalance causing depression. But I have my own theory, and that is that when we are silenced and when we are afraid of speaking up and talking about what is deep in our heart, that causes depression too. It is that quieting that we force on ourselves that causes us to, of course, to become more depressed, to be more quiet, to isolate ourselves. And there are many times when young people feel that there's, and not just young people, I mean people of all ages, that we feel that there's no way out of that we won't be accepted if we speak the truth, or that we're going to be somehow hurting someone's feelings. But I can tell you, when you take your life and your loved ones are left with this kind of insurmountable challenge of living their lives without you, there's nothing that you can say, there's nothing that you can do that will cause you to not be valuable, to not be important on this plane. And you've said it before, Terry, so well. Young people don't realize how really important they are in the inner workings. Go and watch the movie What the Bleep Are We Doing? Or What the Bleep Are We Thinking? It's one or the other, but it's a phenomenal movie that shows us clearly that each and every person on this planet is important to the workings of all else.
And we're all tied together. And we even, like you say, the simplest gesture. I remember reading an article where, just simply by smiling at a person on the street as opposed to looking away and looking down could literally change that whole person's life.
Yes, very powerful.
And when you mentioned talking to your teenagers, we want to reiterate for our listeners again to don't be afraid to ask your teenagers about suicide, because as study have shown that it's not going to give them the thought to actually commit the act. If they have suicidal thoughts, that'll be an opportunity for them, and possibly what they've been looking for is to talk about their depression and talk about their suicidal thoughts.
Yes, and have courage as parents, as professionals, to listen to and hear their innermost secret. They're the most afraid to tell you this. And you get that honorable position of being able to hear it if they're willing to risk it and if you are safe enough for them to come forward. But I would tell you, too, even if they won't share that secret, that dark place of theirs, you do have the power to take their face in your hands and say, please stay here, have courage, and there's nothing that will cause me to not love you. You are the most important thing to me, and we will get through this, whatever it is, together.
And Tamara, we can all remember, when we were that age and the big issues in our life, and we thought they were just so overwhelming, and we just can't possibly deal with that. And if you can kind of put yourself back in those shoes, it makes it a lot easier to deal with your children, isn't it?
Yes, and that's what I encourage, is just to take those moments. So many people say to all the time, haven't we all been there? Haven't we all considered bailing out or fantasized about what we would look like in our coffins and all of that? But this life, this moment in time is so precious. It is a gift, and that's why I wrote Demetrius, my gift of life. He brought me life. He brought me an awareness and an awakening that causes me to use and want every single moment that is brought to me, to use it. And I would say, please don't wait for a suicide to awaken you. Get there now and listen to the kids, and call your mother, call your brother, call the people in your lives, and connect with them in whatever way you possibly can, with a card, with a gesture, take them to lunch, go to the school and pick your kids up and kidnap them from school. And I used to do this with my kids when they were younger and say, and they'd be so surprised, what's the matter, where are we going? And I'd take them to lunch, and we'd go sit by the river and, with a picnic, and just take time together, because you're not going to have another moment. It's quite possible you won't have another moment. So what are you going to do with this one?
That's such great wisdom there, Tamara. That's all I got to say about that. That's such a great idea, to be spontaneous, and as you say, you may never have that opportunity again. And if you do, wonderful. But it's like you always have that moment. Exactly.
And they'll never forget it.
No, and I was going to say, they'll remember that for the rest. You remember that time you came and took us out of school, and we just didn't. I remember when my dad one Saturday afternoon took me to a Cubs game. He just said, "Come on, get in the car. We're going to the Cubs game." And I'm like, "Can we just go? Can we do that?" And I'm like, "Yes, yeah, we can." And I got to spend the afternoon with my father, and it was just a wonderful experience that I did not see coming even slightly. And I always remember that.
It changed everything, didn't it?
It really did.
How you view your father, how you view your power in your day. That you can take those moments and just make it a little different and a little more special. We talked about this once before, Terry, and I remember sharing with you that when I say listen to your children, I don't mean say to them, okay, so how was your day? Ask them, what really made you smile today? What was the funniest thing that happened today? Or did anything scare you today? Or what are you going to do tomorrow? What do you think maybe you could do tomorrow a little bit better than you did today? Or what are you going to repeat tomorrow?
It's all in the phrasing of the question, isn't it?
It's all in the question. And I mean, be creative, because what you want to do is create conversation and let them know that you're listening to them. But, you can say to them, what's your favorite music? What is that album, or what is that band, or what does that song mean to you? What's it saying to you? And then listen. And don't have a judgment about what they're saying to you.
Right, because they're all ready for you to pass judgment on what they say. That's great.
That's why they don't speak to you, because they know you're going to say something, like, that's dumb, or why would you want to do that? It's theirs.
Very good. We're visiting with Tamara Sutton, author of Demetrius, My Gift of Life. And let's talk about the new book now, Tamara. Tell us a little bit more about what are your thoughts on the new book and why you're putting that together.
Oh, gosh. Well, it started actually because I realized that we are brought to transitions every single day of our lives. And some of them are small transitions. You are given a new position at work, or something happens within your family and someone falls ill. My parents are aging right now, and I've had to incorporate 2 days out of the week when I have to go and visit with them and take care of details and help them in any way that I can. So that's a transition. I'm an empty nester. My youngest child has gone off to college. That's a big transition.
Sure.
You get a new car. That's another transition into, how you view yourself or how you get around in your world. And so what I wanted to do was to bring that to light, that we suffer so much stress in every day because these transitions are occurring, but we're not real aware or conscious of what's happening. And so what I would suggest is that we take a overview of our lives and take it slow, but to pace ourselves through the transitions and recognize that they're coming, and to solicit help when we need it, and to recognize, too, that we need to take moments to take better care of ourselves, to get a massage, or, have our hair done, or go play golf, and not do it in a guilty running away, or I shouldn't be doing this kind of way, but doing it in a manner in which feeds us, knowing that we deserve it, and knowing that if we have energized ourselves, then we have something to give to others. And so we take those moments to just put a smile on our own faces.
Well, Tamara, you mentioned, it's funny, being raised an Irish Catholic myself, the word guilt, it was used a lot and used against me. My grandmother used guilt against me. I mean, you can use that against yourself, can't you, as well? Like you just said, I can't get a massage. I don't deserve a massage. I shouldn't do that. There's something else I should be doing with my time to be more beneficial. And you can really just guilt yourself crazy, can't you?
Oh, yeah, almost in a debilitating way.
Real, exactly.
Yeah, and yet, I mean, how can we possibly expect to give and give and give in the ways that our family needs, our workplace needs, life demands? We were talking earlier about so much stress, and heaven help the person that goes into a coma for 2 weeks, because the world changes so quickly, so fast, that ATM has changed, or phones have changed, or television, cable, the news. So much changes in a very short period of time, that we have to find these ways to just relax, listen to the wind, stop and look at the blue sky. Remember what we used to do when we were children that would revive us a bit. The other day, I was working in the yard, and I stopped. I laid down on my back and looked up at these incredible clouds that I had no idea were above me until I stopped. And they were extraordinary, and I just laid there and watched them float by for 10 minutes. And it felt like an hour. And it was just a moment in time, but I didn't forget it all day.
Well, we must be kindred souls, because I was out running yesterday. I had a little heart condition I had to have taken care of, and it was the first day I could run, and I'm running along the river by the Kish River here, and the birds were chirping, and the sun was out, and I sat on a park bench, and I watched the birds play. I did. And
you were there.
I saw the clouds, and I watched the birds, and I just said, what more do you need? People we want to acquire so much stuff, but you don't need a whole lot of stuff. Just moments like that, as you say, can be so rewarding.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And speaking of guilt, I always like to remind people that we have guilt about many, many things in our lives, and I would urge you to use that guilt, that when you're feeling that you missed the mark, or that you didn't say what you needed to say, pick up the phone, put pen to paper, say the words, look to your right or your left, to the person sitting next to you, and tell them what they mean to you, in 2 words or in 100, but take the time. It's so important.
That is a perfect close. We're going to close on that note because we're quickly out of time. Visiting with Tamara Sutton. Always a pleasure, Tamara. Again, people can go to your website, tamarasutton.com, find out about the book, Demetrius, My Gift of Life, learn about your new book. You blog on there as well. You have several articles on there as well, and a chance to contact you and talk to you as well.
Oh, I would love to hear from anyone, everyone.
Well, Tamara, it's always a pleasure, and I want to thank you for your honesty. And again, I always asking you tough questions, but you're always there to respond to that, and we appreciate that. So thank you so much for doing what you do, and we'll be in touch with you, and we'll continue to work on this as we want to prevent no more suicides. That's it. We're done with that, and we want to make sure that it never happens again. So, Tamara, thank you for your time and your efforts.
Terry, thank you so much for the work that you're doing.
You take care, my dear.
Good night, all.
Good night. That's Tamara Sutton. Again, go to our website, tamarasutton.com, for more information.